Hey there, Gabriel here. It's been a while since I did a live on my YouTube channel, so I'm just playing with this to see what happens. And I'm here to share some observations from my recent work coaching men and being a man and being the man and watching men up level. I've been working with a group of guys now for a few weeks, and they come from all different backgrounds, all different economic statuses. But the thing everyone has in common is they're married and family men and looking after business. So they're in that trifecta. So this message is really for that man. And what I've noticed is that um, we truly are the average of the people that we spend our most of our time with. There's kind of a cliche in personal growth about being the average of the five people that you're most around with. But um, the truth is that's true. And if you drift too long in self isolation, then you lose out on that sharpening that comes from brotherhood. Like it's biblical. Iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. And so there's a kind of stereotype about men's groups that I need to name. Before I do that, I'll show you the dirty snow that's sticking around. Um, I'm in Elkville. It's called Bonington, but I renamed it Elkville because there's so many elk who just stand around, fearless and just stare at you sometimes. Uh, where was I? Wife, being a husband. Here's the deal. Your wife is a mirror. A lot of men's groups have a stereotype of being a place where guys just bitch and complain about their wives and their frustrations. But when you stand up in your power, backbone, heart, and balls, and you embody the possibility and the promise that you carry as a man, which is infinite, then you start to take responsibility and there's no blame, there's no victim, there's no excuses. And you start to see that your wife is a mirror and a multiplier. So whatever you give her, she's going to reflect back to you in multiples. That's the awful truth. So if things aren't good between you and her, it's probably because things aren't good within you. And so last week we had this really beautiful remembering, let's say, because we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. But this real remembering of the first covenant. The first covenant in a marriage is actually between you and God, ultimately. Like when you turn to God for your security, for your validation, for your direction, and that becomes your operating system, then you're actually taking leadership. And what's missing for a lot of marriages and men right now is a place to sharpen. They say there's three families that every man should be aware of. One is the family he comes from. Two is the family that comes from him, which most guys are in the thick of figuring out and learning. But the third one is the brotherhood, the chosen brotherhood of men he surrounds himself with to sharpen himself, to raise his standards, raise his game. Um, and that's where we get the cross check of truth because I won't let any man in my consulting room wallow in victim or excuses. We were talking about nervous system states because everything when you're selling in sales or in seduction starts from an inner game, and that starts with you because you're buying the story of who you think you are every single day. Every one of us is a buyer and every one of us is in sales. So I am the story I tell myself about who I am. And I mean, we all get attacked by thoughts, thought spirals, and negative self talk. And that stuff's more expensive than you think. People think investing in a coach is expensive or investing in themselves is too expensive. But what's actually expensive is staying stuck and avoiding the things like the negative and numbing out and staying in a low state where you're lying to yourself. We like to start our meetings with a prayer and with a recognition that we're all liars on some level. We all lie to save face or to put up with something, but there comes a point where the pressure gets too great and you have to stop lying. And so that's what this brotherhood's about. If you're local to Nelson, we're going again on Wednesday night coming up. You can reach out to me if you want to get in the room. Uh, but yeah, so your wife's a mirror, and not only is she a mirror reflecting back to you the stuff that's in you, but she's going to multiply it. So that's why it's so important to get right with God, get right with the word, get right with your inner state, because there's a cascade of power and effect that flows from your inner state. So, whatever way you do that, whether you do it through fitness, prayer, meditation, doesn't matter. As long as you find your way to get into optimized state and then you give from that place. Oriented men have nothing to lose, nothing to fear, and that's the way to move. And the more men who are frustrated in their marriage or aren't getting the sex that they want or aren't being fully expressed in their purpose, it's a similar trouble, because when you can penetrate the world with your purpose and step into it, even if it feels impossible, and it's supposed to feel impossible, then you're going to be in communion with your wife in a way that blows your mind, because you're going to keep pouring into her love and praise and admiration and fondness and court her. And that is what makes uh, marriage come alive from being one that's lukewarm or in a stuck place or stagnant to being on fire with passion, on fire with God, on fire with the flow of eros between you. And when you have that as a married man, you can go out there and build what you're meant to build, whatever that is in your work life, with so much more confidence, because when you come home, you know it's a sanctuary. So that's what I wanted to just get on here and talk about. We have this ongoing Wednesday night group, and we're looking at some pivot protocols from the Warrior Roadmap, and it's an incredible way to sharpen, because every man has four kingdoms: his body, his business and bank account. That's two. His balance of relationships. That's three. And his being, his spiritual connection with God. And those four kingdoms are what you're here to stand in dominion within. We stand in the core for those core. And when you see that tool and that framework, you not only use it as a, let's say, a map and a method for building the whole man, um, but it's also a diagnostic tool, because each of us is strong in some areas and weak in others. And so, um, in order to sharpen, you got to get in the room with other men who are sharpening themselves and are not lying to themselves and are able to tell the awful and sometimes vulnerable truth. And that's where we can transform chaos into order and transform the energy of emotions into fuel, fuel that fuels your purpose and what you're here to build, and how you're here to father, how you're here to husband, and ultimately marriage is your first ministry. So your job as a father is integral, and it's about covering. It's about covering the family with your presence, with your protection, with your provision. And that's a sacred responsibility. So a lot of guys feel a lot of the burden, and that's why they turn to booze or numb out on porn or social media or video games or whatever to numb out. But we're here to feel the pain and let God help carry the burden and give us direction and wholeness and guidance. So that's the long and the short of it. That's the bottom line. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thanks for tuning in and big love. Bye for now.